Hi there, and welcome to Flip the Script Season 3 In the Weeds, Episode 11, Ghosting. The why behind it, the what to do about it, and the how to prevent it from happening in the first place. My name is Becc. I'm going to be your guide for today's session. If you do me a favor before we jump into the content here, if you go to flipthescript.co, click on Free Sales Training Hub on the left, click on Season 3 and then Episode 11 and go ahead and download the deck so you can follow along at each step of the way. And once you've done that, let's ghost ahead and jump on in. So let's jump in. So this is going to be the agenda for today. We're first going to lead with 7 reasons why prospects ghost in general. Just 7 overarching themes of why they ghost. We're then going to go into attachment theory and the 4 different attachment styles. And these are how people attach to other people in relationships and personal relationships and friendships, and also their work and the impacts of that. Then number 3, we're going to go into the why behind ghosting for each one of these attachment styles. Number 4, we're going to go into mowing the weeds, so to speak. So you'll notice within this season that there are really 3 different segments. Mowing the weeds, meaning what are the high-level techniques that will help you? Uprooting the weeds, meaning what are the things that will kill the weeds at the root? They're a little bit more deep. And then preventing the weeds by longer-term topics of positive growth. So essentially for number 4, we're going to go into 5 surface-level techniques that you can do once someone has ghosted you. Number 5, we're going to go into 6 deeper principle techniques that are something that are deeper themes within ghosting that you can do to essentially get them to respond or to prevent them from happening. And number 6, we're going to go into 6 core principles of how you can prevent people from ghosting you in the first place. So let's jump in. So number 1, I wanted to go into the 7 reasons of why people ghost most often. And these are just overarching themes. Number 1 is they don't want to feel like a bad person when they don't give you what you want and what you need. So this is going to be the most prevalent within ghosting. Is people essentially, they don't want to feel bad. And so by telling you the truth or by opening up to you what's actually going on, they're going to feel like a bad person because the truth, they feel like it's going to hurt you. So it's easier on them to just ghost you, so that they don't have to say the words that are harder, because in the alternative, they would have to say something that was tough and it's harder on them, but easier for you, but they're not thinking about you. So they're like, how can I not feel like a bad person, but I also can't give you what you need and you want? So this is going to be number 1 of why people are going to ghost you in general. Number 2 is you made them feel bad. So something that you said, whether that was that they didn't complete something or you're trying to hold them accountable of like, did you see my last email, is a great example. But you essentially made them feel bad. And so they don't want to interact with you any longer, because you built them into a profile of themselves that isn't positive. So this is going to come into play with anxious attachment style. We're going to get into what that is. But essentially, number 2 is, by and large, that you just made them feel in a non-positive way where they don't associate you with the positive profile of themselves. Number 3, something changed internally, and they don't think that you can handle the truth. So they think that if they were to tell you the truth of what's happening, that you aren't the type of person, based on their experience with you, that could handle this in a very mature way. Number 4, this is kind of in tandem with number 3. They think if they say something to you, if they tell you the truth of what's going on, that you're going to try and counter them. I do this a lot to people. If I don't believe that when I tell them the truth, about what's going on for me internally and why I'm not going to buy, I feel like oftentimes they're going to try and counter my objection. They're going to try and quote unquote change my mind. And so I'm not really ghosting them. I just don't want to have to deal with them countering, coming back and like I give them a very valid background of what's happening. And then they're going to come back at me and they're still going to try and sell me. So this is very prevalent. It's kind of along with number 3. Number 3 is they don't think that you can handle it. But number 4, they think that you're going to try and counter them to try to get them to change their mind. And so they want to avoid it. So they just ghost you. Number 5, they were giving you a false objection. This is going to happen a lot in cold calling. They were giving you a false objection because they didn't want to feel bad and they wanted you to go away. And the false objection was that they would show up. So I see this quite a bit on cold calls. Someone will call, into another person and they say like, if they give them their pitch, the person doesn't really want to be on the call. So they say like, hey, I'm running into a meeting. The rep counters and the rep says, well, when's a better time to call? And the prospect struggles. They're like, and then the rep says back, how's Friday at 9? And you'll hear the prospect overarchingly, in a very positive way, agree. They'll go, yeah, Friday at 9's great. And they aren't agreeing and being positive because they're excited for the call Friday at 9. They're usually very, very positive because they know that they're about to get off the phone and that you just bought that they're going to show up Friday at 9. So Friday at 9 will come around and a lot of reps will say like, why are people ghosting me? I'm like, it was a false objection. They agreed to Friday at 9 because they're banking on that they won't pick up Friday at 9 and that they're getting rid of you in the moment whenever they're doing so. So this is going to be the 5th most prevalent reason is when they agree to something. So I'll typically see this a lot for a lot of sellers if they have a buyer persona that's out in the field a lot and very busy, with their hands busy. They're giving you a false objection of saying, yeah, call me back Friday at 9, assuming that they're not going to pick up because they're giving that objection because they feel bad telling you that they don't want to talk, but they inherently don't see the value. So this is going to be the 5th most common reason that they're quote unquote ghosting you is they were never actually agreeing to meet with you to begin with. Number 6, they don't want to feel pressured. And they, because they feel like it might lead in their experience to them making the wrong decision, which is very common with buyers. They don't want buyer's remorse. So they ghost you because they feel like you're going to pressure them. So here they feel like you're going to counter. Here they don't think you can handle it. Number 6 is really, they know you to be the type of person that typically tries to pressure them into doing things that they don't want to do. So if you're a seller who has that reputation, which you'll see this a lot in retail shopping, someone will walk into a retail store and they'll say, what can I help you with today? And the person will innately respond with, I'm just looking. And the reason they do that is they want to avoid being pressured. A lot of people will buckle or cave to buy something. And I've been this person in the past, full disclosure, where I'm like, I bought the thing because I didn't want to let the sales rep down, but I didn't really see the value in the item. This is more transactional sales. This won't happen as you obviously go within B2B, for instance, or hopefully not. But I inherently either have to take the item back or I have to deal with an item that I wasn't that sold on and have buyer's remorse. So both of those realities can lead to someone ghosting you. Like they don't want to feel pressured. They're afraid they're going to make a decision based on you to make you happy that they don't ultimately really want or feel comfortable with. So that they don't feel pressured, they just ghost you. And then the last one here is they don't want to enter a sales cycle because they buy things they don't need and they have buyer remorse. So very similar to number 6. Number 6, you're getting they think that you're going to pressure them. And number 7, they don't want to enter a sales cycle at all, because they're afraid of any kind of light pressure. So there are a number of statistics that show that people want to do research without a seller involved. By and large, there are 20 different variables that people consider when they're buying something. They go peer-to-peer, industry influencers, they read all kinds of reviews, even if the reviews aren't that high quality and they don't know who the person is that's writing them, they're very valuable because it gives them a testing point, because they don't want to interact with a seller. So I think of this of what I'd call Fisherman's Wharf syndrome. So I live in San Francisco and one of the very touristy areas is called Fisherman's Wharf. It's actually, oddly enough, one of my favorite areas of the city. And a lot of times there'll be street performers within Fisherman's Wharf. There'll be someone that's, pretending to be someone that's, like a robot, or they'll be doing street dancing skits, etc. And what you'll see is a lot of people who want to watch, but they don't want to slow down or look the person dead on. So they'll kind of be like peering out of the side of their eye as they're walking. And the reason they're typically doing that, or at least why I've done that in the past, is I want to see what's going on, but I don't want to slow down because I'm afraid they're going to call me out or I'm afraid that the expectation is that I should give them money. So very similar to this in number 7 is people don't want to enter a sales cycle because they don't want to let you down. And they don't want to feel like a bad person whenever they don't give you money. So this is going to be number 7. They don't want to have buyer's remorse. They don't want to buy things they don't need. So they just ghost you in the middle of the process instead. So next I want to go into attachment theory, the 4 different attachment styles, and what are the implications on ghosting. So first, what is attachment theory? So attachment theory is a theory concerning how two humans relate to one another based on the person's upbringing and their relationship with their primary caregiver whenever they were younger. So there are 4 different attachment styles. So the first is going to be secure. And a secure attachment style is going to be 56% of the population. And what this means is they're going to positively approach a task and they're going to try to achieve it or master it. But essentially, they're okay emotionally if they fail at it. So this is going to be 56% of the population, and how in terms of time investment, how they are geared is if you invest a certain amount of time in the secure attachment, securely attached individual, they are going to match your investment. So again, they're going to try to achieve a task, but if they're not successful in achieving that task, they're okay if they fail at it. They'll learn from it and they will move on. An avoidant attachment style is someone who is going to essentially avoid any kind of proximity from someone trying to intertwine with them at work, someone trying to intertwine with them friendship-wise, and essentially they're going to underinvest where someone's going to overinvest. So they love independence. They like to be self-sufficient. They feel like they don't want to be vulnerable to attaching to any kind of person, regardless of that being a work context or not. And they are going to be marqueed by saying that they don't need close relationships and they want to avoid it. So essentially, an avoidant can be very, very easily triggered by trying to pull them into any type of situation. So they're going to be marked by underinvesting when someone else is overinvesting. An anxious attachment style is going to be the opposite. So roughly the avoidant attachment style is going to be about 24% of the population. Anxious attachment style is going to be just the opposite. So anxious attachment style is going to overinvest whenever you underinvest. So they are very, very afraid of failure. So they essentially want to seek a lot of different time and attention with someone within the work context. And they are also scared of any kind of attachment with the person. So how they typically, quote unquote, scare them away is they overinvest in terms of time, in terms of quality, in terms of emotional investment, etc. And again, this is going to be in a work context. This is going to be in a personal context, and they can't take negative feedback very, very well. So in the avoidant attachment style, they don't like negative feedback either. They don't seem to identify with it. Anxious attachment style, the reason they don't like it is because they want to be perfect so as not to upset you. And then the last type of attachment style, and this is going to be the most rare type of attachment style, is going to be anxious avoidant. So an anxious avoidant is going to be a mixture between anxious and avoidant. They were oftentimes characterized as someone who mischaracterized as or misdiagnosed as someone who had bipolar disorder. So essentially, because they were flipping between the two attachment styles of, in some cases, they were being overwhelming, with the amount that they require. And in some cases, they were being extremely underwhelming with their investment. So this is going to be also known as a fearful avoidant. And they're going to flex between the anxious and avoidant tendencies. So what this has to do with ghosting within the prospecting is secure attachment style is going to ghost you within the prospecting perspective in specific because they think that you can't handle the truth if they said it. They think you'll try to counter them by selling them even if they do tell you the truth. Or they think of you as a typical sales rep. Or the last one is you haven't delivered enough value or sufficient level of time investment for them to give you the same amount of investment back. So secure attachment style, again, is going to be 56% of the population. And essentially, they're markered by being what's called adult ego state. So Eric Berne, I don't have too much time to go into his work, but he was a psychiatrist back in the 60s. And he went into, we have 3 different ego states: child, parent, and adult. And in the adult ego state, essentially, people aren't playing games with you. Their only goal is to understand and to increase their understanding of you. And they're not going to play any kind of games with you. And they're not going to have any type of emotion while they're interacting with you. It is hallmarked by not having emotion, even when there's a negative quote unquote impact to the person at hand. So in secure attachment style, they just simply believe a truth about you because based on their experience with you, that if they were to tell you the truth of what's going on in the sales cycle, that you couldn't handle it. You know, you would try to counter them. You would try and be pushy. You would try and pressure them. You would try to waste their time by trying to get back in. And so they would be okay with turning you down, okay with being direct, and okay with, essentially not avoiding buyer's remorse, because they're a secure attachment style. But because they don't believe you can handle the truth, that they are going to avoid interacting with you because they don't believe that you're in the spot where you can take that feedback. So another reason is they see you as a typical seller, someone who's going to push, lie, play game, and they simply don't want to engage in that game. But the last one here, and this is going to be predicated on the type of quality of email. Great instance, if you are not personalizing an email, if you don't know the context of someone's company, if you don't know the context of their business, then their attachment style essentially only matches level of investment, right? So if you invested 5 minutes, they will allow themselves to invest 5 minutes back. If you invest 10, it will allow them to invest 10 back. If you choke back to 2, they're going to match that level of investment because they believe that for something to happen effectively, it should be a two-way street. And if it's not, they're okay with it failing. So again, this is going to be the most of our prospects are going to be slightly over half are going to be in the secure attachment style. So if you don't invest by, let's say, prospect research, then they essentially ghost you because they don't think that you put the investment in there. They're not heated about it. They're in adult ego state. They're not emotional about it, but they just simply don't think you can handle the truth, or they don't think that you research them enough to warrant some of their time. The avoidant attachment style, and again, this is going to be 24% of the population roughly. This is someone who is going to underinvest even when you overinvest. So they see themselves as very self-sufficient, that they're very, very independent. They essentially don't need people's help whenever they're doing their work. But this person will ghost you for 2 reasons. Number one, because that's just what they do. That's what this I almost said buyer persona attachment style is markered on. They're okay with no kind of bonding. They're okay with they prefer their independence. They prefer you not getting close to them. And so this is just what they do. They live a ghost lifestyle. It's out of character for them to not. But the second reason is going to be you haven't shown them that you care enough for it to reach a level that warrants their investment. So again, you have to keep in mind with an avoidant, even when you overinvest, they will underinvest. So the amount you have to research an avoidant is going to be much higher than the secure attachment style. So you'll see a lot of, from what I would guess, avoidants posting on LinkedIn when they say this person didn't research me and they didn't know these 5 facts about me. A secure would be okay with one fact or just knowing something that just happened to their company. An avoidant's going to expect you to have done a lot of different homework, put in a lot of your time, a lot of your research, and even then they'll invest certainly a lower amount than you, but a low amount in general. So if you are getting ghosted from an avoidant attachment style, usually their mantra is going to be like, how dare this person How dare this person not show up to a demo knowing who my company is and what my role is and the 6 different things that I care about? How dare that person, not have done their homework? How dare that person send me a generic email template or not know that these 10 things or these 10 facts about my business? So this is markered by avoidant attachment style. So they're going to ghost you if you don't put an overwhelming amount of time into them within the selling process. An anxious attachment style is going to be just the opposite. So remember, whereas a secure attachment style matches investment for investment, avoidant attachment style is going to match underinvestment for your overinvestment. Anxious is just the opposite. So anxious is going to overinvest even when you underinvest. So you usually see avoidance and anxious attachment styles pairing up. Because one invests a lot when the other gives a little, one invests a little when the other gives a lot. So this type of attachment style, how you can get them to ghost you is when you make them feel bad, not because you came at them, but because they didn't deliver on something or they didn't complete a task that they know that you needed. And so it's a display of them failing. So both anxious and avoidant are going to avoid failure by way of distance. So anxious doesn't want to fail you because they feel you're going to leave. Avoidant's not going to engage with you at all, really, because they're afraid you're going to leave. So in the anxious attachment style, essentially, if you psychologically, from a psychology view, you ask some questions like, so any update on that account? I know that you said you were going to get, that you were going to move, you were thinking of moving forward by end of week. If they haven't gotten the deal there, expect them to ghost you for the next 3 weeks until they have a result or an answer. So if you make them feel like they don't matter, if you reinforce that narrative, if you talk to them from an authoritative perspective down to them, or especially if they don't have a result or an answer that they know you needed, even when you're the one selling to them, they're still going to ghost you because they feel like they failed. So the last type of attachment style, again, is going to be anxious avoidant. This is a small percentage of the population. Only 3% of the population is going to fit into this category. And they're going to have the characteristics of both. So they essentially, sometimes if you haven't shown up to a meeting prepared, they're going to avoid you because you don't think that you gave them the respect of you should have prepared for hours for this sales meeting. The anxious, sometimes they're going to flip into that one. If you send them a message and you need an update on something and they haven't done it, they'll think about it for 2 seconds and then they'll avoid the email like the plague. Because they weren't able to deliver something that you needed. So they're going to flip back and forth between these two personalities. And so you can expect them to ghost you in a combination of one of these two ways, the avoidant ways, or also that you made them feel bad. So they'll do it within both. So I want to go into now 5 surface level techniques that you can do to prevent people from ghosting, or to get people to go from ghosting you to unghosting you within the sales cycle. Then I want to go into how you can, some deeper level premises of how you can long-term either prevent them from doing it in the first place or help you in the moment. And then we're going to go into some core principles of how to make them not ghost you in the first place. So let's dig into mowing the weeds. So again, this is surface level technique. The first thing that you can do, and the most often thing that I do, is going to be, I'm going to send them content between the time where they booked the meeting. So this is within prospecting. They booked the meeting. They said, hey, I would love to be a part of the meeting. Can't wait to be there. And before the meeting occurs. So again, the answer is going to be, whether it's a secure attachment style, an avoidant attachment style, an anxious attachment style, or an anxious avoidant attachment style, the more that you invest, the better off you are. So sending them content between the time that the meeting booked and the meeting they had, specifically if the meeting is far out, then this is going to increase your level of investment. So the secure can come back and match it. The avoidant, can come and show up at all because they're like, okay, they really did their homework. And the anxious wants to invest when you invest. So again, sending them content. So again, the prospect books, in the meeting, specifically if a meeting is several months out or several weeks out, this is a high candidate for no-show or for someone ghosting you. So I would, in this prospecting proclivity, to prevent it from happening, I would go ahead and send them a lot of content beforehand. So you're upping your level of investment that you're giving them. A second way is to include your boss on the invite. And again, this is to prevent them from no-showing from a prospecting meeting. Another way is sending them meeting reminders. So again, this is all a communication to your prospect that you take them seriously, which avoidance will love. So if you include your boss in the invite and say like, hey, I'm, including like some type of social hierarchy, I'm putting some skin in the game here. I'm sending them meeting reminders, reminding them when it's going to happen, sending them content in between. These are going to be 3 great ways to make sure that they see that you're invested in the meeting. So it increases the likelihood or their willingness or ability to invest back by showing up. Something that you can send in after it happens is essentially if someone doesn't show up to a meeting that they scheduled, you can immediately right after send a fall on your sword email of, did I mess up? So this works the most effectively if you know what the person, and this sounds bizarre that I even have to say this, but if you know what the person was trying to accomplish or what problems they're running into that they wanted to discuss further in detail before the discovery meeting happened. So if you did this over cold call, then this is a great way that you could ask for some level of narrative behind it. But essentially, if you're doing it over email, then I would just marquee on the problem that they had. But afterwards, if they don't show up to the meeting, if I haven't gotten buy-in specifically from my prospect on the phone, then all I can say is essentially, did I mess up? If I have a reason of what they wanted to cover or what problem they're running into that they wanted to unpack to see if you could solve for, I can say, hey, Keenan, we'll use Keenan from Gap Selling. Hey, Keenan, did I mess up? Or I didn't catch you on the call earlier. Or sorry, I missed you on the call earlier. Wanted to send you a message and see if I messed something up. Last time we talked, I know that you said that you were running into X, Y, and Z, and you wanted to unpack a little bit further, what the impacts are on my that you're currently seeing, and potentially some solvents to alleviate those problems. So I wanted to see if I dropped the ball anywhere. So this is going to increase the likelihood that they'll respond to alleviate you and say like, no, it's not something that you did. But especially if you have the words of the stuff that they wanted to cover, this is going to be specifically effective. And then another way to do it is if someone is ghosting you and you haven't especially heard from them in a couple months, the quickest way to unghost them, which I do every single time, and the efficacy here is unbelievable, is send value to them. Don't send them an email saying, following up on this, any update on this? If you say any update to an anxious, they're going to crumple up into a ball. And if you haven't put time investment, the avoidance is going to say, well, so to speak, piss off. Like you didn't put any real investment here. But if you send over a piece of value and you say, hey, Keenan, just saw this article the other day and thought of you. Specifically, point number 2 on X, Y, and Z was interesting. No need to respond. Just thought you might like this. Or heaven forbid you send Keenan a lead, or you send him over some type of network introduction or some type of community. There's a lot of different pieces of value that you can send, but essentially I would send some type of value to unghost them. So here's an exhaustive list of all the things that really come to mind whenever I'm sending this over. But again, what you're trying to do is you're trying to give them some type of gift. So I see a lot of reps that are sending follow-up email after follow-up email after follow-up email. Instead of investing that time in sending follow-up emails, I would simply transition in my mind to what is the piece of value that I could send over to them in the meantime. So worst case scenario, I just got the reputation of someone who always sends over value. But second of all, this is going to more, again, invest in them and make them more likely to want to reciprocate with at minimum some type of update of what's happening. So this works very, very, very effectively, puts you in a really positive light. So there's a lot of different examples of here what you can do. I've ranked them if you're looking at the deck in terms of where I've seen the most conversion. But a client, a network introduction, client especially, I would think about what is their win as a buyer persona and can I send that over to them? a network introduction to someone that they'd want to talk to, a gift, a non-company related event. So what I mean by that is it cannot be in relation to your company. So I'd say, kind of giving someone like a free discount, for instance, on your offering. It's kind of like saying, like, I'm going to give you a free gift card for buy one, get one free at the Chili's franchise that I own. Like, there's still a win in it for you. So you really want to focus on, how do I give them value that has nothing to do with a win for me or focus or positivity on me, but simply gives them a win. So a community that they can be a part of, an idea of how they could do something, of like, hey, I saw that you were trying to do XYZ, or I know we talked a couple weeks ago and you were trying to do this. Here's an idea or an attached article of how you could do that more effectively. And it doesn't have to be business related. I would prefer that it was. But essentially, you're trying to send over value in terms of you're trying to help them in general. So they're going to come up with a lot of different things in your discovery meetings in specific of things that are business related that are problems that you solve for, things that are business related that aren't problems that you solve for, and then also some personal things. If you have an idea on how to do something that they had just mentioned, the key here is you have to be specific. So again, this is going to come down to how much do you invest? So a lot of times I see with gifts, people will send over something, they'll buy something really, really expensive, but it's not very specific to the person. And where you're really going to get someone to move if it's specific to the person. So I think of my mom a lot whenever this topic comes up. Of all the gifts that she gives me, they vary in terms of level of expense, but it always shows to me that she has thought of me quite a bit because it's something that's very, very unique. So I would say, especially with the idea of how to do something, that it is hallmarked by, this isn't just something with a big price tag, but it's something that I took a long time thinking about them. Obviously whenever this came up in my mind. So I now view this prospect or the salesperson as someone who has me top of mind. Book list, podcast, webinar, an article. But these are definitely scalable: book list, podcast, webinar, and article. But essentially, these are all the types of value that you can add. And it's, again, when I send it over, I say, saw this thing the other day, thought you might like it, no need to respond. Especially point number 2, stood out to me on X, Y, and Z, and bar none. And I asked actually one of my prospects, and this was a very significant enterprise deal that I got the privilege to work with. I asked him afterwards, I was teaching on this in specific, and he said, "Oh snap, you did this to me." And I said, "I did." And I said, "What was your impression in the moment?" He said, "Oh, I thought it was a very high class move." And I said, "Did you know what I really wanted?" He goes, "Of course I did." He knew that I wanted an update. This is a nice way of doing this. It was at a high hallmark time where I was like, they just went into this meeting and I need an update and I haven't heard from him, which is never good. So what you're trying to combat is your prospect's unwillingness or lack of desire to talk back to you. So this is a great way to do that. I now want to go into uprooting the weeds. These are going to be a little deeper in terms of the principle and technique that you're doing. But the first one I would say for uprooting the weeds is I would challenge the meeting set to avoid ghosting if you feel like it's just a blow off. So I know that we went into one of the reasons that why people ghost is essentially it was a false objection when they agreed to the meeting. So they didn't want to feel like a bad person. So they agreed to meeting so you would leave, but they had no intention of showing up to the meeting. So this is going to come down to a qualitative feel and how you challenge it. But a great example of how to do that, if you go to season 3, episode 2, I go in how to counter shallow objections. This is a great way that you can counter this. But essentially, if you feel like someone's just agreeing to a meeting to get you off the phone, there's nothing that a good pattern interrupt and calling that out in the moment, but without emotion, can do to fix it. So if you feel like the person's just agreeing, to get you off the phone, and you're going to feel this in the minute, you're going to know it in the instant. People who say that they don't, I hang out with buddies all the time, and like we can tell with how someone shifts their eyes that we're like, that's the killer. That person doesn't love them, or that person X, Y, and Z. But it's like we shed all of that sales acumen or emotional, EQ whenever we're on the phone. And it's like, when it's very likely a blow off. So I'd very politely, say something like we use in the objection handling technique of like, hey, can I level with you for a second? I would step 2, use the elephant in the room. I've been hearing send me an email a lot recently, and I get the feeling that that's your polite way of saying, go away, you annoying sales rep. Did I get that right? That was the worst pitch I've ever heard. And then I would take them into a prospect pack. So the prospect pack is step 3 of this. It's an agreement between you and your buyer of what's going to happen in the next 30 seconds in terms of the ejection or at the beginning of the discovery call. So how about this? You give me the next 20 seconds, 30 seconds to give you my best dog and pony show on who we are and why I thought we might be a good fit. At the end of that 20 seconds, you can tell me whether it makes sense to continue the conversation from there. Does that sound like a deal? And the 4th tip here is you want to make sure that you're in adult ego state when you do this. So in this case scenario, when you're trying to challenge that you feel like the meeting is not real, you could say something like, hey, can I level with you just for a second? I've been hearing I'll see you up Friday at 9 a lot from prospects recently. And typically I'm not seeing them actually show up to the meeting. And I'm getting the feeling it's because of how lackluster my value prop is. And this is just your polite way of saying, go away, you annoying sales rep. This was an awful pitch. And I have no intention of showing up Friday at 9 because I never want to see you again. Did I get that right? And usually what you'll hear your prospects come back with, again, they are not going to respond to you and they're going to ghost you if they don't believe that you can handle the truth. If you tell them what you think is going on and you have no emotion behind it, then you are leading with, I'm okay with you telling me the truth, even if it's not to my advantage. So a great example of this is oftentimes you'll hear parents say, Santa Claus is real. He's not, by the way, for anyone watching. Or is he? They'll say Santa Claus is real. And I'll say, why did you tell your kids that? And I'm like, you're lying. But they don't feel like it's lying. They say that he's real because they don't think their kids can handle it if he's not. It's kind of a fun thing to believe whenever you're younger. And so if someone were to approach, if a little kid or someone who is 10 or 11 were to approach their mom and dad and say, hey, can I be real with you? I've been doing the math and I feel like Santa Claus isn't real and that you're actually the one that puts the presents under the tree, but you just wanted to say it was Santa, to make me feel good. Is that right? Again, if it's not hallmarked by bad emotion, what I'm communicating to you at that point is not just that I know that Santa's not real, but I'm communicating to you that I'm okay with it, that I'm mature enough to where I can handle it. So you'll see the parent counter by saying, yeah, he's not real. And they have a normal conversation. So you want to, point 5 here, you want to make them feel comfortable telling you the truth. Your access to the truth predicates how effective you are as a seller or how effective you are as an SDR. So anytime you feel like someone's blowing you off and just saying something in this proclivity, like they're like, yeah, Fridays at 9 is fine. And you'll hear it play out like this on the phone. Hey, can you, I'm running into a meeting. And then the seller or SDR will say, well, when's a better time to call? They'll struggle. They'll go, and then the SDR says back, how's Friday at 9? They offer it up. And the prospect always agrees. They're like, great. High candidate for a no-show. They weren't saying great to the fact that the Friday at 9 meeting is going to happen. They're going to say great because the objection of they were walking into a meeting was not correct. The real objection was they don't want to meet with you. And so you lobbying up how's Friday at 9, they're saying great to the fact that they think that they probably won't be around Friday at 9 and they can discontinue this conversation without feeling like a bad person. So I would challenge if qualitatively you're feeling like it's a meeting that's set that they're not going to show up to, I would counter with saying, can I be real with you? I've been hearing, I'll see you Friday at 9 a lot recently. And I get the feeling it's, because like, X, Y, and Z. I get the feeling it's because it's your polite way of saying, go away, you annoying sales rep. This was the worst pitch I've ever heard in my life. And you actually don't want to meet Friday at 9. You just want to leave me alone, or me to leave you alone. Did I get that right? And again, it's hallmarked by no emotion. So adult ego state is just looking for understanding. There's no negative emotion behind it. So now that we've gone through that, I want to go into the 8 core principles that are much deeper of how you can quote unquote prevent the weeds. So we first went into the kind of the core surface level of what to do when someone ghosts you to prevent ghosting from happening, and also to follow up once it does. We then went into a more deeper technique of how do we call out the adult ego state, what's happening in the room when it's happening, so we can prevent them from scheduling false objection meetings on the spot. These are how you prevent the weeds from coming in long term of people ghosting you. So the first way to prevent someone from ghosting you is don't sell based on pain. People are going to light me up. I can already feel it. Don't sell based on pain exclusively. And hear me out as to why. When a patient walks into a doctor asks a couple of pain-based questions. What's hurting? How long's it been hurting? Where does it hurt? But then they start asking deeper questions because they want to understand not only what's hurting, but what's causing the pain? What's causing the symptom? So the traditional school of thought in the past was we should sell based on pain. I should ask them how long the pain has occurred. What's the impact of that pain? Oh, my arm hurts. How long's it been hurting? 3 weeks. What is the impact of that pain? Oh, well, I can't pick up my kid whenever I go home. What is that leading to? Oh, there's emotional distance. And usually the goal of this type of sale is to make them feel like the pain is more egregious in the moment, and to some degree, and I'm being respectful here, emotionally manipulate them into feeling like they need the medication more. So let's put aside the morality there for a second, which is going to be hard for me to do. If you sell based on pain, then they might feel more revved up in the moment based on how you made them feel, but they'll get off the call and their logic will kick in. Okay, the pain wasn't that bad. You had them on a momentary glance. But the real way to drive buy-in is to sell based on problem. So I'm not going to go into it within this episode, but if you check out episodes 1, 3, and 9 within this season, I go much deeper on this topic according to Keenan and Gap Selling. But essentially, pain-based selling, everyone wants to go for a run after they watch Rocky. They're all jazzed up in the moment and they're like, I want to be the next boxer, and they'll go for a run. Or everyone wants to show up to the gym to lose that 5 pounds January 1st. Their motivation's high. They're emotionally in the moment. But as you see February, March, April, May, or as the image and the idea of the movie of Rocky fades, you'll see people with less buy-in because you are getting them on an emotional thing that was prevalent in the moment. So how this can cause ghosting is essentially they realize after they jumped off the phone that there really wasn't that deep of a problem that they were trying to solve. It was just a pain. And yeah, the pain hurts a little, hurts and it affects my day, but it doesn't become a problem until they truly believe that they want or they need to solve it, and they'll go on a journey with you to do that. Number 2, don't sell based on need. Man, I'm going to light people up. I'm going to get so much hate mail, which is going to be a pain. Number 2, don't sell based on need. And hear me out as to why. If you sell based on need, there's a lot of things that I believe that I need because I want to solve a problem. But because my expertise isn't that field or product, I have misdiagnosed what I need. Okay? So people will ghost you whenever they uncover, if they come in, and this is a high example in inbound, they'll come in saying, I need to buy X. And if you don't challenge them in the moment of like, okay, more than happy to go into it. If you don't mind me asking, why? What were you looking to achieve? What problem were you looking to solve? Because the reality is they might need something different than what they're telling you that they need because they don't know. So this can cause ghosting because sometimes in the middle of sales cycles, and I'll see this actually quite often, they realize that they don't need whatever it was that they initially told you. So if you're selling based on need or pain, it can cause ghosting right in the middle of the sales cycle because either the emotional juju wears off that they need to solve it, or they realize that they didn't actually need what they were talking to you about. And if you don't have a relationship of healthy challenge and and openness with your prospect, then this is going to be a high candidate that they're just going to ghost you instead of telling you that. The third is identify things that harm them that they didn't know about. You do this, you'll win instant credibility and rapport, and you'll be sure based on your expertise, not on their limited focus within your principles, that there is something that's hurting them. So this usually, if someone knows that they have a condition that they need to solve for, then they won't ghost you. So a great example of this is you have to go in and you have to get physicals and checkups, once per year, because doctors are testing for signs that they know there's a deeper condition, but you didn't know there's a deeper condition because they weren't pain-based. So why these can be so deadly in terms of conditions is there's no painful indicator to you that you have a problem. So if you can identify, if you did know you have a problem, of course you would solve it. So this is a great way within prospecting specifically. If you can identify problems that they're running into that they didn't even know about themselves, then they're much more likely to jump on the next call to do something about it because now they know that they have a problem. Diagnosing the root cause for a problem they're already aware of. This is, again, they know that they have a root cause all of a sudden. They know that your solution is inherently valuable to them. Why? Because you correctly identified a root cause. So, I hope the message is getting across here. No feature-based selling, product-based selling, benefit-based selling, need-based selling, or pain-based selling stand alone. Uncovering problems for them that they knew of, didn't know of, or knew of and didn't know the root cause, didn't know of at all, or some type of impact that's going to happen to them. So point number 6 is going to be if you can prognose for them an impact that will happen to them for a problem that they already know. They knew that this was going on, but they weren't considering that this thing will happen to them if they don't solve it because it's outside of their expertise. Then they're not going to miss that meeting. They're not going to miss the meeting for what is the solution to the problem that they have. Or, hey, I think that you have this thing going on your website that's making you hemorrhage leads. Give me 15 minutes to talk about it. They won't miss that meeting. People are only going to show up for meetings if they feel like they couldn't get something that's inherently valuable without showing up. So we are markering for efficacy and time. So these meetings, making them aware of an event that they didn't know about that would issue in a current problem, prognosing an impact, or prescribing a solution to any of the former, and asking questions in cold calls and discovery. And the goal of anything in the former is how you're really going to get people not to ghost you. So these are techniques on how to do it, but essentially you don't have to have good technique if you've uncovered problems for them that they're very aware that they need to solve for. I'm much, much, much more likely to show up to an appointment if I believe that I have a massive problem, or I know I have a massive problem and it's going to impact me in very bad ways if I don't show up to this meeting. So a great example is I hate going to the DMV. Shots fired. I can't stand going to the DMV. It's all these different flavors that I can't, I'm not even going to go into it. There's a lot of germs. There's a lot of people that I don't know. There's a lot of things that I can't control. I don't like going to the DMV. However, I had a problem recently that my license had expired. It was completely okay because I'm like, I'll just use my passport to fly, and I don't own a car. I live in San Francisco. Until my passport was about to expire too. In that case scenario, I would have a very tough time getting a license. I had to go to the DMV because I had just moved locations and you can't renew online. Okay, my problem got big enough when I knew the impact of me not showing up to this meeting at the DMV would be that I would not get my license on time. My passport would expire and I would have no current identity and I would have no ability to fly when I had an SKO right around the corner. So I would miss a massive, very, very important in-person meeting because I didn't show up to the meeting with the DMV. Guess who was at that meeting with the DMV? Me. Why? Even if I didn't want to go, I knew that the impact of me not going was severely negative. So the way to really make people not ghost you, regardless of attachment style, is have such a deep problem that you know they're running into, or you know the root cause or an impact, or you can prescribe a solution based on all of that knowledge, is they're going to show up for that prescription when they believe that they couldn't get that level of specific prescription without you. So this is the way, again, very based on the work of Keenan and Gap Selling. I would pick up a copy of his book if you have not read it, but how you can prevent ghosting long-term, even if you are hitting all the wrong terms in terms of psychology, that you have invested the work and the time to know what problem they're running into, even if they didn't, and that you are the keys to them solving it so that they want to jump on the first meeting to see what that solution is. So in summary, I know that ghosting isn't fun. I know that a lot of people do it, including myself. And so the ways that you can counteract it from a high level by mowing the weeds, by uprooting the weeds, but really preventing the weeds is where you're going to really get that drive that buy-in to where people jump on the next meeting and they want to jump on the next meeting because they know they're going to be at a better place because of their interaction with you. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that we covered enough surface level techniques and different core principles, but that unpacks why people are going to ghost you and how you can prevent it in the future from happening. So that is everything. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this session, you want to see more just like this, if you go to flipthescript.co, and we have a bunch of different sessions on everything and anything sales. And if you really like this session, you want to see some daily clips and updates, if you go to Flip the Script on LinkedIn and go ahead and give us a follow, and we have a bunch of different updates several times a week. But either way, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.